Hello and welcome to the Wagtail podcast. Today I have Toni with me. Hi, Toni.
Hello.
Would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
I surely can. So who am I? It's a very good question. I could answer you with probably 60 descriptors, which would all explain how fun and blessed and happy and outgoing I am. But ultimately, what you really want to know is kind of who I am, what I do. So from that perspective, I would describe myself as kind of intuitive healer, counselor, come mindset coach, being qualified in both. So really who I am, I'm that person that helps people who are seeking find what it is that they're missing in order to really enjoy their life. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. Yeah.
Oh
We'll talk a little bit more about that later on, about what you do. But I'm going to kick off with the first question, and I'm going to ask you, what is your own personal definitions of wellness and resilience? One or the other, or both, up to you.
Well, it's really interesting because the words wellness and resilience aren't words that I use very often. So I love that question because it means that I have to dig and go, okay, what does it mean to me personally? So for me, wellness and resilience is all about building up your well-being to be what I would call in alignment. So bringing your mind, your body, and your spirit into a place where they're at peace, where what you say, what you think, and what you do are in harmony. So ultimately, it's about, rather than being scattered all over the place, doing all the things for all the people, it's having a good, solid understanding of who you are, what's important to you, what drives you, what it takes to fill up your happy tank, how to maintain it, nurture it, fill it, how to share it, how to replenish it, and how to really go about your day-to-day life in control of that tank of happiness. If that makes any sense. Because ultimately, if any of those things are out of balance, you get the wobble, and then you get the darkness, as I would call it, or the fear, and then you get doubt, and then you get untruths, and then you start down this windy web of spider-likeness, which will take you away from just enjoying life. For me, wellness and resilience is all about getting in true alignment.
Okay. I love that answer. And I love the idea of a happy tank. I want a happy tank.
Everybody's got a happy tank. You just got to figure out what it looks like.
Okay.
Often it's hidden away.
I just wanted to ask you, because it's interesting, as like all those things you introduced yourself as, intuitive coach, healer, counselor, mindset. Yeah, what are the words then that you would ascribe the most, other than, because wellness and resilience, I suppose, are a little bit abstract and they're used a lot, I suppose. What are the words that are more meaningful to you to describe those kind of things then, really?
So happiness is one I use a lot. My business name is Discover My Happy, because it's all about finding the happy. In terms of, for me, the words that leap out for me in everything I do are faith, love, freedom, truth, and fun, because I'm all about the fun, because I'm a little bit crazy. So for me, that getting into alignment, those kind of key ingredients, the faith, fun, freedom, truth, love, those are the ingredients of getting in alignment. So those are the ones that come up for me more often.
Okay, cool. No, thanks for sharing that. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your own personal journey towards all those things.
Oh my gosh, how long have we got? Okay, so I will do my best to keep this short and sweet and succinct.
Okay.
A bit like me, but without the succinct bit, because I tend to waffle, so please keep me on track, won't you?
Yeah.
Long story short, so I left school and I didn't go really to college or university. I dabbled, didn't like the tutors, so I went straight out to work, because my family weren't particularly well off at the time. So I went straight into work at 17, which was interesting because it wasn't kind of checkouts or corner shops or supermarkets. I went into Halliburton Brown and Root, as it was at the time, which is one of the world's largest oil and engineering firms on the planet.
Okay.
So I went straight in at the deep end, like splash everywhere. And by the age of 19, I was in full on at the doctor's asking for help. I had savage IBS. I didn't sleep. I had insomnia. I didn't have any peace in my mind. You know, I was a complete overthinker. I had a brilliant job by that point and was being paid a lot of money. But I was still a child on the inside. I hadn't really grown up properly into a professional environment, if that makes sense. So what I did, I went to the doctors multiple times. Each time they prescribed me antidepressants, and each time my gut told me so strongly no. So I said no. And I went off on a different path, and I managed to come across completely by accident a woman who was teaching meditation. And so I joined a little meditation class, and I did that for a good number of years, which ultimately, in collaboration with working with the lady who ran the meditation classes, healed my IBS completely, healed a lot of my overthinking, allowed me to take control of my mindset at work and at home and find balance in my day so I could sleep again, which was magnificent. So at that point in my life, I feel like meditation saved my life, because I was rapidly getting to a point of, what on earth am I even here for? I can't succeed at anything. I can't switch off. So then off I went out into the corporate world. I had a partner at the time, and fast forward a couple of years later, I didn't want to be with that partner anymore. Didn't know how to leave. Took me 2.5 years to leave because I didn't have the strength or clarity or reason why. I just knew I didn't want to be there. So ultimately, eventually managed to end that relationship, much to the distaste of everybody that I knew, because he was the quote unquote perfect guy for me, if you know what I mean. And I didn't even know. Still now I look back and I now realize that it was because I didn't know who I was. That's the reason I was left. But anyway, fast forward again. So let's just skip through many, many chapters. And in total, it's about 20 years of a voyage of discovery as to why it was that I put everybody else first, why I did everything for everyone, why I was an absolute hyperachiever, you know, had to deliver over and above, couldn't be seen to get things wrong, couldn't be seen to let people down. And all the while on the inside was crumbling. Like I was wearing a total mask. To the outside world, I was fun, outgoing Toni, the life and soul of the party, someone who you could always go to get stuff done. On the inside, I was in absolute despair mode. Like, who am I? Why am I here? Why does nobody love me? Why does nobody ask me how I am? Why does nobody want to help me? Why can't I ask for help? I was in a real vicious circle of being out in the professional world, surrounded by people who were more educated, more experienced, more mature than me, and feeling like a total imposter for years. Then fast forward a whole nother chapter, a couple of partners in between, led me to what would be my biggest kind of aha and wake up moment, which was when I got into the cycle of wanting to leave my current husband and being on the edge of asking for a divorce, being sat across a dining table and going, you know, if you don't change, I'm gonna leave. And at that point in time, I'd gotten to the lowest of the low. You know, I'd lost all my any kind of true confidence. It was all fake confidence. I'd lost any kind of connection to who I was. I'd lost my ability to find joy in my day. I didn't want to ever get out of bed, although I did. You know, I was poorly again. I generated IBS again. I'd generated kind of the early stages of depression again. And what I realized, and this is what's kind of led me to do the work that I now do, is that I spent my entire life being completely invulnerable, believing I had to do everything by myself, alone, because of the upbringing that I'd had, because of the family I'd grown up in and the messages that I'd received as to what made you a success, how you had to protect yourself from hurt, how you had to protect yourself from ever being let down or disappointed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So around about that time, I got to my lowest point ever. And I really sat in the bath one night after a couple of glasses of rosé wine and thought, what is this all even about? You know? And I made the big, brave decision to put my big girl pants on and ask for help. I spoke up and out loud to someone, finally, about what had been going on for the past 22 years. And the lights turned on, you know, like immediately. So much became clear as to the life that I was living wasn't mine. It was a version of so many other people's who had formed me in my younger and early years when I was trying to discover who I was. I'd become a version of all of them, and I'd lost who I was. My identity was gone. And so turning the lights back on, letting go of everything that wasn't me, and discovering who I was born to be. The simplicity of it, you know, just really discovering who I was like the biggest discovery, evolution, accomplishment, achievement of my entire life. Was the day I realized why I was here. And in a nutshell, that's now why I do what I do, to help other people fast forward that 22-year journey, because there's no need to suffer for that long.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd try and be short. That wasn't actually that short, but
okay. I got a couple of questions. The first question is just, who was that person? Who did you open up to for the very first time?
It was actually my husband.
Yeah, cool.
Believe it or not, someone that was very close to me, not a professional, but it was the one person who I didn't want to see just how broken I truly was, because I'd lived a lie in our relationship as well as my life. I brought it home, you know. I was living a lie everywhere. So for me, the one person who I had the biggest connection responsibility to was the person I chose to say, I'm lying. Every day I've been lying to myself and to you, to everyone.
Was that a shock to him?
Big time.
Okay.
Big time, because over the years, I mean, we've been together now 15 years, so this was probably 6-7 years ago. So we'd been together a good while, and he thought I was strong as an ox, always the leader, you know, always had everything together, could help anyone with everything. I've always been a helper. I've always been able to serve other people so effectively. One person I couldn't help or serve, because I didn't know how at the time, was myself. So yeah, he was like mind blown.
Okay. Okay, so my second question related to what you said was, because there is some beautiful simplicity, as you say, in knowing who you are, but it's not that easy. Like, how did you go about discovering who you really were away from all these merges of people? How did you start?
By getting to the truth. So I sought the services, and it was a wonderful coincidence. It was a girl that I used to work with 20 years prior. She was coaching, business coaching, and she was looking for volunteers at this precise moment in time to help with coaching things, not necessarily business. She just wanted to start practicing helping people to be able to see what was really going on for them. So I got in touch with her, and she took me on board as a volunteer, which was great. So it didn't cost me anything. And what that allowed was for her to ask me questions in relation to what I'd told her was going on for me, was for her to ask me really clever questions that allowed me to see where I was talking on behalf of me in my language and where I was talking on behalf of somebody else. So, for example, she might ask me a question like, how do you feel about, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of an example now. Let's just ask daft example. What do you think about politics, for example? And I would give her an answer, and she would say, okay, is that true? And I would have to answer, or, you know, or according to who, or based on what? What's the evidence? And it would allow me to go back through the string of my kind of, that's the fire alarm going off in the background. I'm so sorry. It'll go off in a second. It allowed me to get to the root of where that thought or belief system actually came from. So was it mine? Was it my mum's? Was it my dad's? Was it my husband's? And allowed me to see if I knew the answer, or actually if I'd even have an opinion really on the answer. And quite quickly, what I realized was so many of the answers that I was giving to questions weren't mine. They weren't how I truly felt. They were who I had been programmed to. So just by having somebody hold up a mirror and reflect back to me the answers I was giving to see if actually really that was an accurate representation of what was happening in my mind, body, and spirit, I so quickly realized, no, I don't believe in anything I'm actually saying. That's not the way I feel at all. You know, so it allowed me that, how do I feel? What do I think about that? And it was much more obviously centered around me and my personal development, but I just couldn't think of an example straight away. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, that's the beauty of coaching, isn't it? That people ask those questions. However, I can imagine that was quite hard hitting.
It was. There were it was really eye-opening because I'd spent 22 years searching. Like, I hadn't sat on my butt for 22 years after learning how to meditate and done nothing else. I'd tried reading books, I'd tried online courses, I'd tried watching YouTube videos. I hadn't ever really sat still in seeking or searching what it was I felt like I was missing, you know. And so for somebody so easily, so simply, just through a sequence of conversations, to turn the lights on in a way that it hadn't been illuminated to me before was beautiful.
Okay, I love how you've described that, because I've had a moment like that where all of a sudden it hits, somebody's asked you a question and you've just gone, oh, okay, so that's not authenticity. I'm not being authentic, and it's flipping horrible. But you've said the word beautiful, so I'm intrigued by that.
I love it. I see the beauty in everything.
Yeah.
Part of my journey has been to see to the root of everything, and in everything there is a lesson. And to me, lessons are beautiful because if there's something to be learned, there's a way to grow and there's a way to improve, you know, be the best version of you. So to me, any lesson, I find a beauty in it, even if it hurts.
Okay, I like that. It's a good attitude. Okay, so tell me more. Let's turn this story into kind of strategies and tips that you've learned along the way with your journey, because it's a long journey, 22 years, that you have discovered really work for you and have supported this new view. Although I would like to just say, if I can as well, it appears that you are that you do have the same qualities as you had before, but perhaps just the inner has shifted.
Now they're in alignment. Yeah. So before, my kind of mind and body could perform, but my spirit wasn't in it. I didn't believe what I was doing. I didn't love it. I didn't feel connected. I felt like I was just acting, you know, if that makes sense. So while so many of the traits that I exhibited were part of me, it wasn't truly me. Mind, body, soul, spirit, wholehearted, you know. Under a spot lamp, I would have crumbled because actually I didn't really love and enjoy what I was doing because I knew I was a fake. You know, I had that root feeling the whole time that whenever I was there smiling, yeah, of course I can, I'd love to. On the inside, that was always there. You know, that resentment as to, yes, I'll do that again for you, and yet you still won't ask me how I am or what I need, you know. And I wouldn't speak up. There would just be that real imbalance between the outside and the inside, shall we say. So yes, activating what I call my spirit, getting connected to my core, allowed me to be really, really, really me all the time, which is, you know, turns out a little bit crazy. And I kind of always have been a little bit crazy, but toned it down so much because I was too much for other people, you know. Too much, such a terrible expression.
It's a terrible expression.
It really is. You know, anything that puts a box around somebody because of someone's perspective, you know, that's one person's perspective out of 8 billion. Who else thinks that? Because I bet you it won't be 8 billion, you know. But sorry, I'm digressing. Back to your question on kind of tips and strategies. So
Yeah, although I wonder if I can take you back actually. I
please
wonder, sorry, now I'm getting
do.
carried away. Actually, maybe weave your strategies and tips in between what we talk
Yeah.
about. I want to know what your next step was. So you've gone to this coach, you've had this wonderful opportunity, you've this wonderful experience to stop and say, oh, what? Then what? How did you really get to that inner core that you're talking about, that connected inner?
So the next step, interestingly, also came about completely by accident. So there's kind of a two-step process. So I must make sure I come back to both. So again, and I believe in, you know, everything for a reason. I truly do. So about this time, I was also looking to start investing in property to create a pension for myself and my partner. And I stumbled across an advert for a free afternoon tea in a hairdresser's one afternoon. A hairdresser's I wasn't supposed to be in, not my regular hairdressers. One I'd phoned 2 hours earlier and said, can you cut my hair for a wedding tomorrow? And they said, yeah, of course we can. Just random, never possible where I live, but it happened. So I found this afternoon tea invite and thought, oh, I'll go along to that. I might be able to find people with houses for sale in terms of this investment malarkey. Went along to the afternoon tea, and when I walked through the doors of this village hall that I went to for this afternoon tea, I burst into tears. And I felt love in a way that I had never experienced before. So throughout my whole life, you know, growing up, there wasn't a lot of the word love banded around. It wasn't really that kind of family so much, if you know what I mean. In relationships with partners, the word love was banded around. But had I ever felt it? No, not until that moment in time. In that village hall, I felt the power of love saturate every fibre of my being. And I felt at home. And so that was really weird, obviously, because I'd just gone along for tea and cake and to meet some people with houses for sale. And what I came to realise very quickly through talking to the lovely ladies that were there was that it was actually a local church. It was a church called Faith Church. And unbeknownst to me, I'd realised that I'd walked into what real love, unconditional, unjudgmental, unfiltered, pure love felt like. And it blew my mind.
Wow.
Absolutely blew my mind, because it was like nothing I'd ever felt before. So let's fast forward a bit more. So that started sort of part A of that next step of evolution, which was finding faith in something way bigger than me. And that then led me with my new realization of who I was born to be, like who I really was, what my unique skills, gifts and talents were, and then finding that kind of faith portion, that love portion to go along with it. What happened next was, how do I utilize that? Because I've hated every job I've ever done. Yes, I've been really good at them, because I can't not be good at something, because it's part of being an achiever is you just have to do a good job because it's who you are. So I sat with an A0 size piece of paper, if you know how big that is, and biros, and I set about looking at everything I'd ever done, what I enjoyed about it, what I didn't enjoy about it, and I started mapping the consistencies. And I realized that what I loved more than any of the jobs I'd ever done was helping people to see how they were standing in their own way of being the best version of themselves. And I'd done it my whole life, but just never been paid for it. And so at the point where I thought, hang on a minute, I know who I am, I know what I want, and I know the voyage it takes to get to who you are and what you're born to do and be, so that you can live the life that you enjoy. Why on earth would I not take that out and educate people from that perspective? So you'll laugh at this. Then, of course, the kind of inner saboteur leapt in and said, but who are you to do all these things? Yes, you might be a fully qualified intuitive spiritual healer counselor. And yes, you might have all these years of corporate experience. And yes, you might, know who you are and been helping all these people. But who's going to take you seriously? So then I went, okay, well, I'll have to get a mindset coaching certification so that I can prove that I can do what I say on the tin. So then I embarked on certification to get accredited to do what I've been doing my whole life intuitively and not getting paid for it.
Yeah.
And so, of course, with mindset coaching comes even more personal development, even more awakening, even more letting go, even more discovery. So
Yeah.
in a kind of 4 or 5 year period, let's just say, it went from 22 years of kind of struggling, bumbling along in the wilderness to climbing this mountain for 5 years solidly to get to the top and going, yay! I've arrived. Let's spread the word, because from up here, loads of people can hear me. As you can tell, I like to use metaphors, sorry, and imagery. I'm a seer.
Yeah.
So that was kind of what came next. Again, if it makes sense. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah,
Does it answer the question?
yeah. I'm intrigued by that feeling of love. What was it? Those specific people or the environment or just a vibe? What was it?
I feel like it was the presence of God, to put it in really blunt, hard and fast terms.
Yeah.
And nowadays a lot of people are scared to say the word God because, oh well, there's so many judgments. If he exists, then why would this happen? But actually, if you can peel back those questions and get to the truth of what people really want to know, because the bigger questions are what you hear in the media, they're what you hear your parents said. When you peel back what people truly want to know about who they are, the real questions, actually God makes total sense. And when you realize that, for me, people talk about God and faith and rules and regulations and shame and guilt and persecution, all these things. For me, there's one word that I use to encapsulate my faith, and that is love. Because ultimately, I truly believe that love is all you need. Because if you peel back everything, like every other emotion, if you peel back fear, anger, sadness, resentment, guilt, hurt, shame, if you peel all of this back to love, you can not only exist, but you can thrive and grow and see the beauty in everything and be open to opportunities and be open to love from others. Because a big hard hitting lesson for me was, until you learn to love yourself, you don't ever permit anyone actually to truly love you. And I think because I had gotten to the point of discovering how to love myself, mind, body, spirit, meat suit, as I call it, your skin, I spent years beating up on, because I've got ginger hair. If you can't see me, if you're listening, I've got ginger hair, I've got freckles, I had braces at school, I had wonky teeth, I was short, I wore secondhand clothes, you name it, I got, it in the neck for. So the voyage of discovering that I'm beautiful on the inside and out, and it's okay to love me with all of my perfections, imperfections, whatever you'd want to call them. When I was open to that, then I could allow love in. So that love had always been there waiting for me, always. But until the day that I was ready to step out and go, yeah, okay, I'm worthy of this. I deserve love. I'm ready to be loved. That was the day that it went, bing.
And is that ultimately what you think probably saved your marriage? You said you were sitting there across the table thinking, oh, I'm about to get a divorce, I'm going to get a divorce now. But was your self-love, the permission to love yourself, then saved your marriage?
A huge part of it, yes. Because I blamed my husband for everything that was wrong in our relationship. You don't appreciate me enough. You don't compliment me enough. You never decide where we go at the weekends. You never think about my feelings or where I want to go. You don't do the washing up enough. You don't, I would point the finger at him so often about all the things that he wasn't doing or doing badly, because I wasn't taking responsibility for my own happiness, my own love, my own well-being. Like I was blaming him for what I wasn't doing for myself. So you've probably heard kind of the expression, like when you point a finger at someone, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you.
And I haven't heard that.
You haven't?
No, that sounds so obvious, but I haven't.
Doesn't it? When you hear it, you go, oh. And in future conversations now, for you and all of your listeners, if ever you find yourself pointing and saying, you don't, you never, why don't you, and doing that, that's where it's brilliant to just go, hang on a minute. What do I really want right now that I'm not either asking for or taking responsibility for? What do I need that I'm not verbalizing? Well, how am I truly feeling? Am I just blaming someone for something because I'm not expressing what I want or need? Because that's what my biggest learning was I wasn't telling him how it made me feel when he didn't do the things that he was either doing or not doing. I didn't express what I really wanted to do. I expected him to know and just do it. We've been together for years. Why don't you just know where to take me? Why don't you just know what to buy me? You know, because I was expecting him to know it all. But, still to this day, sadly, he's not a mind reader. So that was a real, a real learning curve for me, was learning how to communicate. That's such an essential key of life, because for years I didn't do it. I pleased everybody else, made sure everybody else got what they wanted, and I sacrificed my own wants and needs because I didn't want to ask for what I wanted. I wanted to make everybody else happy. Why wouldn't I? That's what you do, right? No. That's a lesson that was hard to learn, and it took me a good while to be able to believe that I could put myself at the same table of being served in order to kind of be a fully paid up member of society, that you can take and give. And actually that's where balance comes.
Yeah. So how has that changed then? Because I mean, you're still that person, aren't you? You're still that person that is happy to help others and wants to help others. But how do you manage to balance now?
How do I
Say
balance?
no more, or do you do it differently?
I say no now, because I never used to say no at all. So there is no's as well as yeses nows. And sometimes it's no, sometimes it's not right now. But ultimately, I know what my happy tank looks like. I know how many hours in a day that I can expend helping others without getting tired or exhausted or starting to feel resentment. Like, I know what that looks like. I know what my energy levels are like. I know what my ability to give from a place of love is before it turns sour almost. Because when you get really tired, it affects your well-being, as it were, because ultimately when you have less energy, you have less strength, you have less focus, everything depletes. And serving from that place is nowhere near as powerful as being present. So now I know when my ability to be present starts to wane, or I start to get tired, like I know when to say no more. I would love to help you, but let's do it tomorrow or next week, or when next best suits you, for example. Or if there's a weekend where, let's just say, there's live music on and I'm really looking forward to it, and somebody comes along and says, oh, I could really do with your help for an hour moving house right at the same time as the music festival. Historically, I would have said, oh yes, of course, and written off the music festival. But now I would likely say, I would love to help you. I've got this thing planned in that I'd really love to go to, but I'd love to help you see if you can find somebody else that can give you a hand. I'll love to support you, but I really want to go because it's been in my calendar. So I would say I'd love to, but I'm not going to because I really want to do that. Because people understand. People will take note if they know why, if they know that you're doing something that's really for you. It's okay to say no. It's okay to put yourself first. It's okay to do what you would love. That took some learning.
Okay, so all right, I'm intrigued about your happy tank then. So tell me, I'm assuming what's in it is energy levels, knowing your abilities, faith is in it. What else is in it, and how did you get them in it? That's a big question, I think, but do best.
I love it. So what fuels my happy tank? Fun is a massive portion of it, because I am a child at heart. I always have been, and I likely always will be, because I love to perform. I love to be silly. I love to be outgoing. I love to dress up, in silly outfits. I would think nothing of putting on really daft makeup, putting my hair in dodgy bunches, wearing clothes that don't match. And I'd happily go and shop in Tesco's wearing just that. And I'd giggle when people would look at me, because I'd love it. Because to me, fun is a way of changing your state like that. If you've had a bad day, and you come home and your husband's got a joke or a funny video for you to watch or whatnot, something that makes you smile or laugh, instantly your state can change. And all of a sudden, you know, the very chemistry of your body shifts without you even having to think about it. And all of a sudden it starts your tank refilling back up again.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
And so, you know, fun is definitely in there, because for the longest time I wasn't having fun. I was existing, but not actually topping up the number one thing that really drives my tank, which is fun. Faith, as you said, is definitely in there. So faith is the fuel. Like, if you think of a fuel tank and it gets to the minimum level, for example, what that means for my happy tank is that my happy tank is never empty. It can't be. It's never, ever empty, because with faith in it, there is always fuel. There is always a way of getting somewhere, even if it's slowly, even if it's limping. What faith means there's never an emptiness. Whereas before, I spent a long time empty, feeling like there was no option, no strength, no determination, no motivation, no nothing. So faith definitely exists in there. Freedom is in there. I like to be free. I don't like to be constrained. I don't like to be told what to do particularly. I don't like to conform with what everybody else does. I like to do what feels right for me. Yeah. So if I feel like I'm being led down a path, that takes energy out of my happy tank straight away. And I can feel it. So that's where I will openly articulate and say, hang on a minute, I'm not feeling particularly good about this. I'm feeling like I need a little bit more, you know, power, or a bit more stretch or ability to do this my way. So let's talk about that. So I'll inject the freedom back in just by ensuring that I've always got an element of control over my happy tank. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And what else goes in there? Fulfillment. So I love to help other people, whether it be physically moving house, whether it be mentally to realize something that's been standing in the way, whether it be giving money to animal charities. Like, I love to help others. So fulfillment for me is a big part. Like, if I'm not serving others, then there's fuel missing. It's a bit like do you call it, like in sports cars, like NOS or like boost? You know, fulfillment is my boost, which really, you know, bar what I'd call your ticking over level of fuel, helping others is what makes it go sky high, like overflowing. You know, and I think because I've got an awareness of my tank and because I know how to control it, then on average, I would say 80-90% of the time it is overflowing. So that serving that I do for others is from a place of love and overflow and abundance, as opposed to necessity or servitude or because I have to. You know, it's coming from me rather than being pulled out. Like, I want it to come out. I want it to be shared. I don't know if that makes any sense.
That does make sense.
Thank you. I'm pleased that you understand. Like, I'm very rambling and using imagery and
no, that's good. So all of those things, what you would say your tips and strategies are to be fulfilled and happy, discover you're happy, and wellness.
So number one tip for me, because it's been a tool that I've used for over, let me think, I'm just counting, well, over 28 years now ish probably, is meditation. And not necessarily the meditation that you would learn in an app or from other places. For me, meditation isn't about listening to music or being guided to go and do things or see things. For me, meditation is the art of being comfortable simply being. And what that looks like for me isn't trying to stop your thoughts. It's not trying to count your breaths. It's not trying to be, do, or have anything. It's the ability to be comfortable and happy and at peace, simply sitting and allowing yourself to be. And that sounds a bit kind of, okay, well, how on earth do you do that? Because for me, it's the journey of when you first sit still and close your eyes and just sit, your mind goes, oh, playground. What should we throw in? You didn't do the washing up. You haven't taken your stuff to the dry cleaner. You've got to cut cut the grass. And oh, did you remember to ask your friend how her mum was? Instantly, the moment you go too quiet, your brain starts to fill in the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It starts to pile in everything that you've either done, not done. It just tries to fill in the space, because nowadays we're not used to space. We're used to being always on. In the age of technology and evolution, we don't ever escape the on. As a nation, as a country, as a world, we're always connected. And in that always connectedness, there's that need for something else to be going on outside of you that you can partake in or be connected to. So for me, meditation is about sitting, allowing those thoughts to come up, and for you to learn how to let them gently pass by without grabbing a pen and paper, without getting up and going to do all these things. It's allowing the thoughts to come and go until you get to a point, a bit like a bath sponge. You know what a bath sponge looks like, right?
Yep.
And if it's dry and you put it on the top of a water bath, like if you put it on top of a bath, it would float, right? Because it's full of air. Yeah. So to me, that's us. On a daily basis, that's humans. If you start to squeeze that sponge, the water takes the space of the air, and the sponge starts to get lower in the water, right?
Yeah.
And as it does that, the bubbles come up. So the more you push on the sponge and squeeze it to get it to go under the water, all these little bubbles start coming up to the surface, and they keep coming until the point the sponge is full, and then it relaxes and rests, below the surface of the water and finds peace. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to me, the art of practicing meditation is the art of being that sponge, allowing the bubbles to keep coming up and up and up every time you sit, just allowing them to come up and up and up until the point comes, that the thoughts simply give you a break. They don't stop. They just allow you the space to go, this is what it's like when I'm just simply being. This is what it's like to allow myself to experience the peace of an uninterrupted mind. For me, meditation has underpinned my entire journey. Without it, I have no doubt it would have taken me 40 or 50 years. And it's a consistent I see in people going through a self-development, personal development, spiritual journey, is the more people meditate, the faster they experience the results of what I call getting connected. So I would say number one tip is learning how to be at peace simply being. So allowing yourself to just stop and experience what it's like to not have to think about a thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way I explain it to people is, when you wake up in the morning, you don't say eyelids open. You don't say, right, okay, breathe in through your nose and breathe in through your mouth. You don't say left leg, bend muscle number 4 and 6 and 8 and 12 and restrict to 35 degrees to get out of bed, do you? Just open your eyes, swing your legs around and up you get. Because your body knows how to run you and exist you and keep you healthy, safe and alive without you doing a thing. And we get real busy from the moment we get downstairs to brush our teeth, overcomplicating what it is we need to do in order to experience joy in our day. And for me, the joy of learning how to simply be in mind, body and spirit and just exist is when the world changes. It's when you feel in flow with it, as opposed to like you're paddling up a river the wrong way. It's like, people who, like me, I'm a very much, recovered overthinker. I would liken myself to trying to swim up Niagara Falls and clinging onto the rocks to get back up from whence I came. Every day was a battle. But the day I let go, plunged into the water and then just went where it took me, was when my relationships improved. My work obviously improved. It changed to be doing something that I loved. My health improved. Any semblance of physical upset that would happen if I was overthinking, so be it IBS or stress or muscle ache or headaches, tension headaches, migraines, all of those, when I got in flow with just being who I was, all of those symptoms, all of those negative relationships, all those negative connections just all disappeared. It didn't require half as much work as I thought it would have done to repair. And the funny thing you mentioned about my relationship with my husband, the funny thing is, for for somebody who spent years blaming him for all that he needed to change, we have a remarkably brilliant relationship today. And do you know what he had to change in order for us to achieve that?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. He didn't change a jot.
Mm.
It was all me,
Yeah.
you know. And as I grew and evolved and learned and figured out who I was, it helped him to do the same. Because something that I've learned is when you go for what you love, everybody else benefits.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a universal law. Go for what you love, everybody else gets to do that too.
Okay.
And it's magnificent. So that's number one tip. Would I throw any other tips in there? Support, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So learning how to be vulnerable and ask for help, whether it be to people you know or don't know. There are resources out there for people. You know, there are plenty of free resources, there's plenty of paid resources, there's plenty of, do you know what I mean? There are a myriad of resources out there. And I think a challenge of today's age is people think, oh, something's wrong mentally, I go to the NHS.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the NHS, don't get me wrong. It serves a magnificent place in our country. It does a wonderful job in so many areas. But its primary existence isn't to help people to discover who they truly are so they can be at peace and enjoy their lives. That's not their primary function.
No.
You know, and the way that, sadly, I personally have experienced that they manage people who aren't quite achieving that by themselves is to medicate them, which makes me really sad. So ultimately, you know, for me, the faster somebody can seek the assistance of someone, anyone, and just speak up and out loud about what's going on for them, the faster you create the space for the light to come in, the alignment, the awareness, the different perceptions, because the moment you speak up, you give power to what you want to happen.
Yeah.
I call it like having an army of one. If you keep everything to yourself, you're an army of one.
Mm-hmm.
And one person versus 8 billion, no match.
Mm-hmm.
But when you speak up and out about what's going on for you and realize that there are many other people on this planet that have gone through, been through, or are going through what you are, and you can go talk to them about it and find out how they're dealing with it or how I've dealt with it and whatnot, all of a sudden you're connected to an army of likely millions, you know, and being connected to that life force in any way is just remarkable. So number 2 is definitely get a support network. Friends, family, strangers, paid for, not paid for. Just start speaking up and out to people about what's going on for you. And I feel to say, you've heard the expression, a problem shared is a problem halved, right?
Yeah.
And I used to think it was because the other person took on the problem, which is why I wouldn't share with anyone, because I thought, oh, I don't want them to deal with my problems. I don't want them to feel sad. I don't want them to feel bad. Oh, what if they take upon, you hear about empaths and all this malarkey and you think, oh gosh, I mustn't share. I will be a burden.
Yeah.
No, it's not true. A problem shared is a problem halved for me, is when you speak up and out. 1, you create space. 2, you allow the light in. 3, you give room to get answers from the universe, from God, from the ether, whatever you want to call it. You know, people call it different things. But when you create the space, you leave room for answers that come from somewhere else other than your own brain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? So it's nothing to do with the other person. The other person, it could be a frog. It could be a mirror. It could be a pen, you know.
Yeah.
Up and out is where the magic is. Verbalization gives power, no question.
I think I'll just add there that it also takes away the opportunity for somebody else to serve in a way that they might really value and want.
100%. It makes other people have a sense of pride and happiness. You know, like I spent years helping other people, okay, and I felt amazing doing it, but I never allowed anybody to help me. So I took away the opportunity for anyone else to feel reward or satisfaction or a sense of achievement from helping me with their wisdom. I took that away from them by thinking that I could do it all by myself. You know, so actually I sabotaged everybody that I ever loved that wanted to help me, which in hindsight is really quite sad. You know, it was a big learning curve for me that I took away the opportunity for people to help me and get a sense of reward and achievement through doing so. So now I'll talk about whatever's going on with anyone that'll listen. Like, you want to feel what I feel? Have some of this. Let's see where we go.
No, I'll share that. I think it's brilliant to. I think we should. I think we should. I think society, the way we become more compassionate, the way we become more connected to other people, it is to be vulnerable and share.
We were born to be connected. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been given a mouth and a voice box. You know, if we weren't born to be connected and share and exchange, we would be like horses. We'd be able to neigh, but we wouldn't be able to have conversations, for example. You know, we're evolved beings. We're evolved to connect. And, you know, when we connect from a place of love and full support, because for me, anything less than 100% support is sabotage. You know, anything less than 100% support is sabotage. So for me, 100% support is love. You know, I don't agree with what you're doing, but I'm going to love you anyway and support you in what you're doing. That's love. Not, oh, don't do that because you'll get let down. You're not clever enough to do that, so don't try it because you'll end up disappointed. That's not love. That's sabotage. That's keeping somebody small and in a box to suit the other person so that they don't have to put up with the fallout if it goes wrong. You know, but the love is when it goes wrong. If it goes wrong, it went wrong. Brilliant. That's great. What did you learn? Oh, actually, okay, yeah. Well, I learned X, Y, Z. Brilliant. That's great. Now go do it again.
Yeah,
that's support. That's love. You know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I get very excited when it comes to talking about love and support because, you know, on a daily basis, I'll be in a supermarket, I'll be walking down the street, I'll be at a theme park, or anywhere I am, I hear conversations. And I can hear in conversations every day, all day, sabotage everywhere. You know, language is so vital, and so many people are so blissfully unaware of the seeds they sow and what they grow in other people just merely by speaking words of sabotage without even realizing it. So one of my missions is just to raise awareness about language and communication. So we do it in a non-violent way. And actually, it's a really brilliant book. If you haven't read it, I recommend it to everybody. It's called Non-Violent Communication. And it's brilliant.
Yeah, I've read that one. Okay, I could talk to you for ages because I language is a big thing for me as well. I think it's massive, but we don't have that much time to talk about language. But maybe another time. So, what else? What other? Before we move on to the next section, what other strategies we've got? Meditation, we've got support. What else? What else have you got?
I would say it's learning to let go of the old.
Okay.
Identifying, really getting up close and personal with the truth under everything that you say, under everything that you think, is to just question anything that makes you feel off kilter. What's actually going on? What am I thinking right now? What am I believing? And is it true? Because if it's not true, I can let it go. If it is true, I can do something about it. Because learning the art of becoming more aware of your thoughts, especially the thoughts that push you off kilter, and getting to the truth of them are really where the power is. And meditation enables you to do that because it allows you to get rid of all the daft stuff by simply being. It allows you to just operate with the emotions, the thoughts and the feelings that are healthy, natural and supportive for you, because you've got rid of all the other junk. So meditation helps that just by osmosis. Being able to talk to other people out loud. Often when I've shared something over the years, I'll say it and go, oh gosh, doesn't that sound daft when I say it out loud? And then bam, I'll get the truth of what's really going on. Because ultimately, when you can make peace with your thoughts, understand them, where they come from, why they come from, where they come from, and then learn how to get rid of them, or not get rid of them, learn how to eject the really negative ones, learn how to invite the good ones, and learn how to discern the difference, which does take practice, which does take effort, which will require some research, learning, or support from somebody who can do it. Then you've mastered life.
Okay, so let's connect that then with the next thing that we want to talk about, which is how you promote kind of wellness and resilience in others. Is that technique how you do help people to discover their truth and discover who they really are? Is that what you're looking at when you do that?
Yes, in terms of getting to the truth. So really, I get to the truth of where people have been, not where they think they've been, but the truth of where they've been. I help people to see the truth of where they want to go, what they really want, not what other people want for them, and then help people get to the truth of why they don't already have it, all the things that they want, to see the ties to the past, to see the anchors, the ropes, all of the things that don't belong anymore. I help people to kind of get to the truth of who they are underneath all of that, and then kind of equip them with the kind of tools and strategies to be able to manage all of the stuff that tries to come back in again when you are free and happy to go out and enjoy life your way, because life never stops happening to you. So it's a constant work in progress. Like I talk to my clients about us being a garden. Like I talk about a mind garden. So I talk about assessing what the garden looks like, because typically it's a complete mess. Then looking at, okay, what do we want it to look like? Let's design it. Then it's going in with a JCB and clearing the garden and going, right, let's get rid of everything that doesn't belong. We'll pick up the plants that we do want and put them back. Then it's about nurturing the soil, fertilizing it, then sowing, then seeing what grows, seeing what roots that were deep down buried that still try and crop up in between the beautiful roses and begonias, spotting the ground elder and plucking that out, and then managing that garden on an ongoing basis, because birds will always fly over that garden, poop in it, and something will start growing. And that's, for example, a well-meaning friend saying, oh, you don't want to do that, he'll think you're high maintenance, for example. Something as easy as that can start growing a root where that person stops asking for what they want because it's seen as high maintenance, for example. So the way that I kind of, how do I promote what I do, or how do I promote it in others, is I talk about the truth. I talk about getting to what really is going on. Just asking questions, making people think about what really is happening as opposed to what they think is happening. Getting people connected back to what's truly going on, and the art of how your mind, body and spirit can be all over the place, and until you bring them back together again, you'll always feel like you're flapping.
Okay. It's big, isn't it? It's big. Because I watch I watch your videos on Instagram and TikTok, and I just think, wow, it makes me really want to know how to do it. Like you're so engaging. It's like, no, but can you tell me the secret? I want to know the secret. And that's always what's going through my head in watching your video, saying, no, just tell me, Toni.
And here's the thing is, I can't tell people the secret without helping pull out the secret from within them, if that makes sense. Because ultimately, I could say to you, go and do all the things that I've just said. But you'd only be doing that with your version and model of the world that has existed until now. So you'd be looking at it from one perspective, yours alone. And that might not be the truth. And we can't discern always very easily for ourselves what the truth is. So having somebody to be able to interpret and hear what you're saying and saying, really? Is that true? And pushing to go, oh, hang on, there's another layer. Yeah, there is. Because that's what I couldn't do for myself. I did, I don't mind sharing with you, I spent nearly, I think it was about £20,000 in total on personal and spiritual development in order to reach that place of being connected to who I truly was. And it wasn't until I had somebody sat in front of me holding up that mirror and allowing me to see what I couldn't see by myself in the books, in the courses, in the self-help, it wasn't until that moment that breakthrough happened, that I could really see. So where I try and help people to see is, you can do so much by yourself. There is so much you can do, like meditation. Getting that in as a practice without anything else will change your life, because it had the power to save mine. Didn't get me ultimately to that moment of connection, but it helps significantly, and things like having support, talking to people, absolutely that'll help, because ultimately problem shared is a problem halved, and room for space, room for growth. But when you can find somebody who can really know where you've been, what you've experienced, what you've gone through, somebody who can relate, that person can help you peel back all of the layers of excuses you know, hiding, or that, you know, just, oh, this is why I can't do it. Really? Is that true? You know, and it sounds so simple and so daft, really, when you think about it. But it needs that level of gentle pushing, a bit like a parent when a child first learns to walk, right?
Yeah.
You know, the little baby will stand up and they'll pull up onto the side of the table, and they sort of toddle and they let go, and then they fall down and they bump their bum and they cry, wah, wah, wah. But mum's there or dad's there or whomever's there to go, oh, try again, little Johnny. You know, they'll hold their hands and say, right, you've just got to build the muscle, you know, because the more you build the muscle, the more you'll get the strength, the faster you can go. So for me, it's finding someone that can do that for you, because that was what changed my life. You know, it was having that someone, that person that had been where I had been, could help me identify all the reasons I was standing in my own way and going, I can't do it, all the excuses, and allowing me to be completely and utterly vulnerable and find myself again. You know, so the sad news is, if I could bottle that, I would be a multi-billionaire. And I do tell this to all of my clients. You know, they say, oh, can't we just fast forward it? Can't we just make this happen? Like, isn't there just, you know, can't we? No. And each journey is specific to you. You know, I am not particularly well versed in helping people, say, for example, let's just say in an only child growing up. They will have a whole different frame of reference to a child that grew up as the oldest child in a family of siblings. Because being the oldest child comes with a lot more responsibility and expectations. For example, someone growing up in a family with disabled children or disabled siblings, again, I'm not the best placed person to help somebody with that model of God. Yes, I could help them ultimately. I do have faith that I can help most people with a lot of stuff. But actually, who I really help are the people who have walked my walk, who have been the oldest sibling, whose dad walked out on the relationship and abandoned the family. You know, somebody who spent an entire lifetime people pleasing others so that they could have a semblance of identity and look for that missing piece. You know, I help those people who are on the outside, who have it all together and have the perfect life, but on the inside are dying because they've never found the peace and love and joy that they're worthy of. That makes sense?
That does.
But I wish I had a magic wand, and if I find one, you'll be the first to know.
I appreciate that. Okay, all right, we've just reached the last question, and the last question is, unless there's anything, is there anything you want to add that we haven't covered? Anything that's burning that you want to tell the world?
I don't think so, for I think I'm good. I think I've managed to let most of the words come up as they come out. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to think at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right. So my last question, because I like people to celebrate themselves and be aware of, you know, what's within them. So if you could tell me a value that you have, or a strength or a personality trait that, you know, is really strong within you, that you use in a positive way to support or maintain your well-being.
The first one that comes to mind is freedom. Absolute freedom to be me, to be crazy, to be daft, to be heard, to be loud, to cry, to be sad, to express my opinion, to say no, to say yes, to say everything else otherwise. Absolute freedom from fear. Irrational, unnecessary, inappropriate fear. Like, for example, if I stepped out into a road and a car came, yes, I'd be scared and jump back out of the way because I don't want to die. That's natural. But I would say, for example, standing on a stage, yeah, I'd do it. If Ed Sheeran pulled me out of a concert and said, come up and sing your favorite song to my 375 million audience, I would do it in a heartbeat, and I'd do it naked, because ultimately I am free to be who I am at all moments of day or night, with absolute, just without a care in the world, because ultimately I can't control other people's opinions of me, and I don't want to. You like me, you don't like me, that's fine. There are people I like and there are people I don't like. Doesn't mean I don't love them, because I love everyone, because everyone is worthy of love. Nobody was born bad. Nobody was born to be, you know, who they might have actually developed into at that moment in time. But people can always grow and change. So to me, there's nobody that's a write-off. No one. Everybody is worthy of love and growth and support and nurturing, you know. So I think for me, freedom. I want to set people free of the cage that they've built up for themselves, thinking they have to protect themselves from the world. But actually, it's not true. We were all born to be birds, you know, just free to go where we want, how we want, to have faith that we'll be fed and watered, and to enjoy the beauty of life. Because I think people have lost that a lot. Many people. Nobody talks about the beauty of life anymore. People talk about how bad it is, the cost of living crisis, the government, you know, war, flooding. Nobody talks about the beauty. And I think if you can imagine 8 billion people shifting from pain to pleasure, from darkness to light, you know, from, you know, impossibility to possibility, this world would be a different place. And it's my mission in my own little way, in my own little corner of North Norfolk, to set about bringing that about. You know, I know and believe with every fibre of my heart that world peace is possible. And I'm going to do everything in my power until my dying breath to go about bringing it about.
But those things are very real though, aren't they? The kind of the cost of living, the poverty, the inequality, the government decisions, those things are really very real. So you can see how people can't make that shift.
Well, I see that those things exist. And I see that what people focus on is what they get delivered in abundance. And I see how if people were to focus on the fact that they have a job and they're able to pay their bills and they have 3.5 hours spare in the day if they needed to top up extra income, or they have banks that they could talk to, or, you know, if they looked at all of the possibilities as to how they could manage the cost of living crisis, as opposed to there's a cost of living crisis, don't you know, there's a cost of living, I'm going to be, oh, you're going to be what? Because you can't say you're going to be broke until everything comes to pan out, and it, you know, it's cause and effect. You can't get to the effect part before you've been through the process of the action or the activity. So I feel like if people could shift from fast forwarding to being broke because of all of these bad things, and actually look at the possibilities and opportunities that exist right now to prevent you getting to that place, then a lot more action would be happening, and there'd be a lot less problem, because people are preparing for the problem instead of preparing for possibility. Yeah. Okay. And I see that in everyone I talk to, and I choose to rein myself in some conversations that I have, because quite quickly people see that what they're talking is what everybody else is talking. It's not their own thoughts, it's not their own opinions, and then they get uncomfortable because you're calling them out on being a copycat, on being a sheep, and that's not a nice place to be either.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, it's you get what you focus on. So get busy focusing on what you want, because it's universal law of attraction. Asking it is given. And people have packaged up the law of attraction over the years in many different guises. You'll be familiar with them, I'm sure. Yeah. Bible, first book that was ever written. Ask and it is given. There didn't need to be any more books written. So many hundreds of thousands of people have written it in their own language, in their own way, and overcomplicated and made millions from it. It's all great, it's well and good, but it's existed before the dawn of time. Yeah. Believe, ask and it is given. Believe that you are worthy of receiving it and it is given. That's the law of attraction. So for me, it's about eye-opening awareness of what you're creating in every moment of every day, because you are what you think.
Okay. That is,
I could talk to you for hours. Forgive me. I could absolutely talk about this subject for hours.
We could talk for hours, but we've come to the end. And, thank you so much for coming on my podcast. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you. I've enjoyed every single moment, because I get excited talking about that which lights me up.
Yeah.
Absolutely thrive and love it. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share part of me.
You're welcome.